So welcome to the last part of our today's program, which is going to be panel debate or panel discussion. So we have here like five panelists. So that's Erin Carson, that's Pavel Tomčák, Alice Valkárová, Zuzana Musilová, and Pavel Jungwirth. So each of them actually, they do like various types of science, but actually, mostly physicists, biologists, I would say, actually, turns out, chemists, right? So mostly natural sciences. Unfortunately, our panelist who was actually social sciences couldn't make it today because of some official duties. So today we are basically asking a question, how could we actually better harness in Czech Republic the potential of ERC? And just actually to give you some background, actually if you check statistics, and there is very nice ERC portal for that, then let me just give you some breakdown so you understand the scale of the things. So the best countries actually, like in terms of like ERC grants, are actually not the countries. So like Sweden, Netherlands, Denmark. So they have about like 600 successful applicants per 10 million people. So I normalize everything to 10 million. So they have about like 600 per 10 million. Then you have like these three big countries like Germany, France, UK. So they have like half of it. So they have like 300 successful applications per 10 million. And then there are southern countries, Spain, Italy, Portugal. That's 150. That's again half of that previous. And then are we? So we are at about like 70 successful applicants during the duration of the whole ERC. And now the question is it a phenomenon which has something to do with our history, or shall we do better, or how should we do better? And this is a question on two levels. So one of them is what can we do better on the support, on the institutional level, on societal level, and the other one is actually what can we do better as individual scientists. So I would like to kind of address these two questions. And so the first one is based on your prior experience, because all of you have like extensive experience from abroad. What do you think actually we could do better, or what have you observed doing better? And we have already heard a lot from Pavel Tomčák, so perhaps like are there other people who would like to take on this question? So what they are missing in our Czech Republic system, how could we actually help people to do better in ERC? Pavel?
I'd be happy to start, and the mic is working, and maybe turn the question a little bit around and following what Pavel said in the previous session, because he seems to be present in more than one sessions, and that is that the ERC grants are not a goal. It's not a goal of the Czech science to receive more ERC grants. ERC grants is money for doing research, and at best it's an indicator. And so we can ask ourselves, why are we performing so poorly in this indicator, and what is it saying about the system? And it would be awesome if there are people, if the policymakers here. Is there any policymaker here in the audience? No, okay, so please tell them. I think there are a few things. So of course, money, and I've been in the Czech science since actually the Velvet Revolution, and we were always complaining there is not enough money, there's not enough money. And actually, there is much more money now in research than before. And somehow, we have to really discuss the efficiency now. And another thing is evaluations. Evaluation is a mantra, right? I mean, we all talk about evaluations and how the evaluations will show and distinguish excellence. And then we will do, once we do a good evaluation and we apply it, everything will be great. I think we're missing the point, at least the most important point. And in my opinion, the most important point is picking the right people, because as the proverb goes, the success of a school trip primarily depends on whom you take with you on the bus. And if we pick the right people, if we let them grow. And after all, I don't want to do statistics on a single example, but we heard Paolo Paiotti talking here half an hour ago. Paolo is such an example, a hire from abroad that we brought here, and after 1 year here, he got an ERC grant. So maybe that's what we should do. We should break the inbreeding. If one word kills Czech science is inbreeding. We should bring talented young people here, and we should let them grow. And of course, I mean, what Zdeněk is doing is great, it's the support, but it shouldn't become the fig leaf, you know, like that the politicians, if Zdeněk does his job like as good as he can, and we will increase a little bit the number of ERCs, and the politicians will just say, hey, see, now we've done the job. No, we need to really bring the right people, let them grow, break the inbreeding, and of course, then support them, help them, do the mentoring that Pavel was talking about. And I found it very inspirational that Pavel said, there is no like such a developed system to help the ERC applicants as in the Czech Republic, in Germany. But somehow it works because the Max Planck Society on a long term actually cares about its own talent. So of course I'm like, you know, I'm barking at the wrong tree here. But I want this message to maybe start this discussion with this message that Zdeněk has been doing for 20 years, like as much as he can, even more than he can. And this shouldn't become the fig leaf of the problems of the Czech science. Thank you.
I'm not doing it alone.
Zdeněk and company, okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Zuzana.
Hello, I'm Zuzana. I could not be here in the morning because I was teaching, so I'm sorry. But I would like to second this opinion, and I think that we really have different environment here. We are not internationalized enough, so I am sure that vast majority of ERC holders here are Czechs by nationality, while if you look in the northern countries, in Netherlands, for example, I'm sure there will be a lot of foreigners for them. And I think we need to create the environment that we are able to attract people to come here. And that's one thing which basically is the same what we've heard here, so to break the inbreeding, and also to make the environment welcome for these like grant holders so that they can do their job, so help them as an institution to perform well and not to create other obstacles. So I can see now, I'm an ERC holder now freshly, and I see different approaches of different institutions, and like the Charles University or the Academy of Sciences, some institutions, they have a very different approach to how they support the holder, or if they want not to help at all, sometimes they don't care. So this is something which I can somehow filter that out, but I'm sure that people who can choose will choose to go somewhere else when they have better conditions.
Okay, thank you. So that's thank you. Other things? Okay.
No. So I am Alice Valkárová. I am originally a particle physicist from a faculty of mathematics and physics, and I have been also president of Czech National Foundation, and now I am also a member of Scientific Council of ERC. So, and I would like to tell that everything what was said. So these are the most important problems which we have. So internationalization, and also this how institutions look to potential ERC grantees. I know, and I know from some people that not everywhere institutions are happy when they have somebody who obtains the ERC project. So it is maybe it is, and also another point is that we should inspire people just to apply, yes, because if we will have no applications, so we will have also not ERC grants. And some people, they of course they think, okay, so I am not so good, so I have no chance. And after one unsuccessful applications, they just stopped. Yes. So, and I know about people, as it was said also by here my colleague, that some people from West, they just applied for 3 or 4 times and then they are successful. Yes. But in our country, it looks like, okay, so I was not successful, so it's my failure, and I will not apply more. Yes. So this, I think, and also what was said here, I think that are most problematic things in our research. Yes. So.
That's very interesting. Thanks. Anyone else? So maybe Erin, would you like to share something, because you have experience from abroad? So
Sure.
you got, yeah.
Yes. So I agree with what was said, that we have to make it attractive for people to come here, and that basically comes down to money. But I think we also have to make it possible for people that are of Czech nationality that are here to gain the background that they need to be competitive for ERC grants. And again, that comes down to money. So my background is in the US, which is outside the realm of ERC, but there are equivalent things. But it's typical there that when you bring on a new assistant professor, they have some kind of startup package. So they have some kind of money for traveling, to hire some PhD students, postdoc, for a short-term period until they can, hopefully obtain some other grants. And so this is somewhat equivalent to, I think, the Primus program here at Charles University, but I think that's something that should certainly be expanded if we want to make it competitive and desirable for people to come here and to make it possible for people who are here to, again, gain this experience that gives them this excellence criteria that the ERC cares about.
Thank you. So let me actually maybe go back to Zuzana. So you mentioned that there are some things which institutions shouldn't do. So you were comparing like Academy of Sciences and Charles University. So we don't have to know who is who, but can you tell us like what's going wrong actually there? So.
Yeah. So. I have a personal experience plus an experience of a colleague who recently left our institution and went to the other one. And one of the reasons was that, the scientific environment was not dynamic enough for him, which is something else. But also there is not like the administrative support or the general support from the, let's say, leadership of the faculty was not convincing to stay. So he basically said, so I talked to a vice dean and a dean that I'm about to leave, and do you know what they told to me? And he said, nothing. So that was one thing. So that was like at the end, but also he was having the starting grant, and then now he got the consolidated. So he already had some experience of being at the institution. And there was basically not any support for the hardcore administrative part, or there are skilled people, or there are some skilled people, but it's not anyhow organized. So the supporting unit, which is meant to support, is actually not helpful at all. So we need to find side solutions. So the skilled person is there, but you need to really dig deep to approach that person. So basically, if I, in a short or long story short, if I say that the unit, like the support unit for the foreign grants, it's absolutely non-functional. And if you complain, it's always kind of bagatelized. So they told you, you will manage somehow. And these are little things, but there are thousands of them, which really prevents you from focusing on your research. You really have to spend quite some time on stuff not related to science. So for him, it was just too much, and he left. And I'm now there. Things work somehow, but I had to find a way, and I can imagine the support could in general be way better. And I also didn't feel anyhow like welcome. So I don't need to hear any like welcome words, but there is a big mismatch between how the institution makes like, yeah, we've got 2 ERC grants and all social media are full with that, and how you are being treated when you need something or when you need to find some help. I still think it's because we don't have that many, and I'm sure that in 10 years perhaps it will be better, but maybe now it's the time to say what is good and what is not, to really change it in a way that it works fine. So that's my opinion on that.
I see. So I guess that kind of raises another issue, which is actually retention of the ERC grants and grantees. So we know of several cases of people who actually left either with the grant or after receiving the grant. So any solution to that? So you were saying basically the support is the lacking problem. And
it's one of the first things you meet as a grantee. And then I know that if you take your ERC grant and you write to some institutions abroad, look, I'm considering to come, they will come with with some package offered to you. So you can get this and this and this, please select us. Well, I don't think anything like this is here. And I think at a certain point, this might be needed, especially if we want to attract someone else with an ERC to come to our country. This is absolute must. And it seems that the people in the leadership just don't always know that as a full package. So that's my feeling on that.
okay, thank you. Pavel, you wanted to...
So, is this working?
Yes, you can speak.
So I'm here to replace someone, right? So it's not that I have to be on every panel, and I'm replacing a person from the leadership, and the leadership is not here, right? So I think unfortunately the bad news, I really echo what Pavel was saying, but unfortunately the bad news is that in order to attract somebody to Czechia or Moravia, wherever, I mean, we actually in fact have to offer them more than what the advanced industrial nations are offering them, because it is simply a fact, right? And so because we are at the end of the day not really the attractive environment, to start a scientific career for somebody who has no experience with our culture, and so in order to attract the best, we really need to actually be able to offer more, and sometimes like some negative experiences, so I think in Brno we have generally quite good experiences, but things also happen that, for example, we do attract somebody who is really top notch in the area, which really synergizes with everything what the city stands for, and the only thing which would be necessary is to kind of take several of the stakeholders together, different universities, maybe the industry, which could have very much interest in this, and put some of the resources together to be able to really attract that person, so that we have a chance to start the new scientific revolution in Brno with all the risks it has that it might not happen, right? And and that is very hard to orchestrate, very hard to achieve. And on the industry side, I maybe will not comment, but on the academia side, it often comes down to but when that person comes, we will all pitch in. But who will count the publications? How will the publications, which DKRVO will benefit from the papers which that person produces, right? So that's at the bottom of this discussion, right? Which is our obsession with metrics and some kind of credit and actually really fact that we are producing scientific knowledge in order to generate money, attract money to our institution. So basically this, I think, needs to change. We need to think strategically and pool our limited resources together so that we can attract the best.
You can keep it, actually.
Since I'm a hopeless optimist, so I think I struck a little bit, maybe, critical tone. And that was by purpose, because I wanted to poke the people who are not here. But I want to say one thing is really great in this country, and I think this is ERC.CZ. And I want to really stress that. This is a program that I think really started here, and what I heard from Zdeněk is being now copied also by other European countries. So those people who just end up just below the threshold of financing actually get funded locally, with the advantage that the reviewing process has been done at the best possible level. Not perfect, but at best possible. So there are good signs, and there are good examples of good practice. So I would say ERCCZ is one of these examples, and we should do all we can to preserve this program. And I know it has been under attack many times. That's also something that has been mentioned here, right? I mean, we have in this country the word that doesn't exist in English, Schadenfreude, right? Škodolibos, right? Or whatever you want to call it. Like, when we got ERC in our institute, and I hope Paolo would agree with me, I mean, it was like everybody was happy, and people were celebrating it, like this was a success of the institute, and that what retains me at my institute. Not that I get some extra funding, okay, that's nice, but that like actually people are happy that we have it, that it's a general pride that we're sharing, right? And we have to overcome this Schadenfreude approach. That's not just Czech. This is Austro-Hungarian legacy, right? But we're Czech Republic. We could do different and better, I think, on this. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yep, please.
I'm not sure that we are the first country which uses this ERC CZ. I think that Poland was the first one, but they now cancelled, and now they think again to just to introduce it. Yes, and I must say that. I would like to be also optimistic, because when I'm in scientific council, I can compare, and I am responsible for widening countries, yes. So I can compare our results with the results of other widening countries. And I must say that we are doing much better, and it is also appreciated by ERC. And Maria Leptin, she was here in May, and she appreciated a lot all these activities which are done by these mentor groups, by Zdeněk Strakoš and others, yes, and and also this ERC CZ and so on. And she, when she reported about it in Scientific Council, she just claimed, okay, so this is a very good practice, and in Czech Republic, and so it was rather interesting and good experience. And also people from Poland, they contact me and ask how we are doing, because we are still improving, yes. So not much, yes. And all these problems which were here mentioned, so they exist, of course, yes, I know. But tendency is positive, at least.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I just have a very short comment to that. So I also know personally people who came here because of the existence of the ERC CZ. So I think it has a real practical result of attracting people like doing good research here, which I think is great.
That's great. So maybe let me just actually comment. So I also know the number for Poland. So Poland has like 10 grants per 10 million. So they are like 7 times worse than we are. They have like 17 total. And Slovakia has like 2, and I didn't check many other countries. But so many Eastern European countries are doing much worse than we are. Yet, I think we should be looking westward, on the east. Oh, we are Central European. As opposed to them? Or? So... and let me just actually comment maybe like Austria. So Austria is actually on the level of Scandinavian countries. So that's fairly amazing, and that's country that's our neighboring country. But it used to be the center of the empire, so that may be the reason. But I would like to actually go maybe back to these grant schemes. So I have noticed that sometimes, like we have this X-Pro grant scheme, and we have some other grant scheme, which somehow try to lead to people to actually apply for ERC, but very often what happens is that that actually it kind of prevents people from applying at the right moment. So do you have any thoughts on that actually? Which goes kind of back to what you said, that you have to apply many times, and we should actually do that. So I think that's a really important message. So any thoughts on this? An experience with that? You know, like when you have, for example, when you get some X program, it's for 5 years, and it basically you are not going to apply for ERC in the middle, although maybe it would be the best for your career or chances. And so some of these schemes are a little bit like, Pavel?
So playing the devil's advocate, I'm the contra-example. I applied in the middle of X-Pro for ERC, but I was a co-PI only. But I think I view the other way around, because that was not the first time I applied for ERC. I was unsuccessful first time. And then I kind of repackaged it and sent it to you, to Gatcher, and I got, of course, a Gatcher. So, you know, it was not a wasted. So I don't see a problem here. And I think it's very good that we have this X-Pros and Primus in particular, because also particularly at the more advanced levels, you need to prove that you were already successful in some kind of, and not just the local grants, but maybe some prestigious local grants. So I view all these X-Pros and Primuses very positively, like a training grounds, if you wish, for ERC. And
I think in this case, you know, the problem is not the system, it's more the people, right? Because you know, advanced grant, you can apply for it any time. I mean, it is based on your 10-year track record, so you know that's not going to change from, you know, year to year. And as Pavel was saying, I mean, you know, X-Pro doesn't prevent you from choosing the right time, you know, where you have the best chance to get the advanced grant, right? So, but people are maybe then a little bit complacent, right?
Okay, I agree with that, but maybe let me just like reply to this. So this may not be true for X-Pro, but it's true actually for Primus. So for Primus, it's kind of like, like the stage for the early guys is actually very fixed, and you have to really apply the right tier. And yeah.
Once again, Primus, or X-Pro.
It's UK.
Primus is like we are competing with people who have something like Primus as the core funding, which is given to them as they are hired, right? So if you have Primus, you are not going ahead of anyone. You are actually still catching up, to your competition when it comes to support, right? So I don't think that and the people who have the core funding, for example, at Max Planck Society, but in Germany everybody has some kind of core funding. I mean, they are not like standing still, they will not run their lab for 8 years with free people. They are constantly applying for grants, so they are step ahead, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned X-Pro, and there is also another program. This is Junior Star, and it is for young researchers. So I was not here in the morning because I took part in evaluation as an observer of evaluation of X-Pro projects today. These projects are evaluated by foreign evaluators, yes, and So what I noticed that all these projects, which were on the first positions, maybe first 6 projects, they were so excellent, and people from the panel, they were just disappointed that only few, 2 or 1 will be funded, and the problem is that these projects are just excellent, yes, but GACHR has not so many funds to fund it, yes. So and this is a problem, yes. And the same for Junior Star, yes. So it would need some better support of these excellent projects.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I did not have any impression like what you mentioned, that the Primus would anyhow compete or like delay my application. The Primus, for me, I also had Primus, was like still have actually, is the money which is not restricted by not many rules, so you can do kind of your research freely, and I mean I think you can even get the ERC in the middle. Nobody will like take the money back from you or anything. So it is really meant to support you, to also help you to bridge some period when you start at the new institution or whatever. But it doesn't anyhow delay the ERC application. I think that was my experience. I also know a colleague who got the Junior Star, and that was the thing when he said, I don't need to apply now for an ERC. So it happens, but I think you cannot like avoid that entirely. It's just people have different priorities, and then when he decided to focus on that project fully with no applying elsewhere, that was his decision kind of. I don't think it's a systemic problem that would really block people from applying.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? So maybe let me then actually change the subject a little bit. So this is like on the fundamental level, like of the institution. But let me ask you kind of like more like personal question. So how do you actually choose projects to work on? When you, for example, like Pavel, when you apply for your ERC, how do you choose how do you choose the topic, or what do you do actually? So.
I think this will be really a bad example, so nobody should listen, right? So I tried first time with advanced ERC, I think it's like 10 years ago, and I failed. I got even B, so I didn't get to the second round. And I thought it was like the coolest project I've ever written, and then I sent it to GACHR and got funded, so it was cool, right? And then I couldn't apply for 8 years because my brother was in the board of ERC, and there is like a family members cannot apply. So I had plenty of time to think over what I want to do. And then, meantime, I think I did all my exciting projects I did in the meantime. And then when my brother finished his term and I could apply, all I had was kind of like a methodological project that I thought would be very useful, but was extremely boring. And I consulted it with my brother, and whether it makes sense to actually apply. And he said that actually, and I hope this is true, but actually, well, I got it funded, right? So it's probably true. He said that ERC more and more realizes that projects that, this coming, kind of toning down the high risk maybe, right? That actually projects that bring new methodology and help other in the community may have their value and are worth funding, even though, you know, it will not fill the first page of the, you know, the New York Times. And it was exactly my project. It was really kind of blue collar, boring, but useful. Very unusual for me, like what and so I gave it a shot. It worked. So again, statistics is horrible, right? But what I'm trying to say is, I believe this is what I want to do at this stage of my career, and I thought it was like a worth pursuing project, so I went for it, and that was the only criterion.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
For me, it was. It was simply like, for me, the priority and the only qualification would be that I really I'm passionate about the question. So I was considering, actually maybe thinking about the same, should I write something more like overall analysis of everything and everything that would be like more larger scale, but for me it started to be very foggy and I didn't enjoy it, so I completely abandoned the idea and then postponed my application by actually 2 or 3 years. And then I realized that, okay, so let's write it about the thing I'm passionate mostly by, which in my case it's a deep sea fish, so let's just write a crazy proposal. And I mean, if you are passionate about it, you will manage to write the things which are the questions or points or objectives which are really interesting if you know something about the topic. So in my case, it was purely driven by that, like curiosity with, of course, some you have to have solid methodology to be able to answer that, and of course to see some like broader picture. It can't be only I want to do this because I'm excited, but it must be somehow well thought through. But still, for me, that was the qualification, and then I decided to go this way. So yeah, that was my case.
How about you, Erin?
Yeah. I think, like you said, it has to be something you're passionate about. I think it also has to be something that really plays to your strengths, right? So you have to know what you're good at, what you can accomplish, and come up with a project that's interesting that allows you to do that. So for me, I'm in applied mathematics, computer science. So for me, the question is, how do computers look like now, and how do we implement algorithms on this new hardware that's coming out? So whether it's new GPUs, new computer systems, high-performance computers, what do the algorithms look like on those machines? And so I had some background in this, but then you have to kind of figure out how to take it to the next level and ask the questions that are going to be interesting, but also make it, again, something feasible that you have the background to do.
Mm-hmm. So I will be talking about advanced grant, and so I got it at the time where I was kind of very strongly proposing that we should be able to bridge between two disciplines which are relatively isolated, and I saw really huge potential in that, and I tried to get funding for it in the US and came very close to it, but I had this grand idea where I also assembled colleagues to work with me on it. We didn't get the big funding in the US, but I kind of used that as a springboard for my advanced grant, and of course the money was the resources were 2 orders of magnitude lower than what it was written for. So afterwards, it focused on something which I was actually working on, right? But the grant vision was big, right? Or at least it was something very fundamental, not very specific, but very fundamental about building a bridge between disciplines. If I would be writing an advanced grant now, I would be probably building it around the idea that we should actually abandon the reductionist approach in biology and try to be non-reductionist, right? And so I just mentioned it just to say sometimes, for the advanced grant, it's good to have something really, really large, bold, and kind of fundamental and of general interest. It doesn't have to be a topic even, right? It could be really just approach to science.
So I see that I am the only one person here who did not apply for ERC. So I have been a part of a large collaboration in particle physics. So there are typically in the experiment where I was involved, there were 300 people. Yes. So I was always asked how to find what was done by whom. Yes, so it's possible. Yes, but it is not so evident like in the case when there are two authors of the paper. But I'm not active in research since this experiment was stopped. It was in my last PhD student left, and so from that time I have been a president of Czech Science Foundation and now in ERC, so I have no time to do research. It is a pity, but sometimes I feel that it is pity, but it's not possible, yes.
Maybe actually, like in your case, so still, would you have some advice actually for people who work on like big collaborations, how they should actually like, what kind of projects they can actually come up with? Or
with projects, I think that it is more difficult than for people who are not in such a. Of course, you have plenty of publications. Yes, you have some 100 publications per year. But with 3,000 co-authors, yes, and it is not so easy then to represent what is particular your work, what is on this experiment. So it is rather difficult, and I must say that also in ERC it is not so easy. I have seen, because I was also sitting in the panel, evaluation panel of ERC, and I got some such projects, yes, with this large collaboration experiment. But I must say that it is rather difficult, yes, because, for example, panelists feel that probably there are another sources, yes, of funding, yes, or that it would be anyway done, yes, but somebody, yes, and so on, yes. So it is sometimes it is more difficult if you are part of such a huge collaboration that you can write some very independent, because work was done by you, but you are not the only author, yes. So it's difficult sometimes, yes. So. It is not so easy I think, to apply for ERC grant in such a collaboration. But some people, they succeeded, yes. But I am afraid that it will be a tendency also to the future, because I see that there are more and more such a large collaborations, also not only in particle physics, but also in other fields. So it would be probably difficult.
So I may want to add my 2 cents of words of wisdom as a panel member now, because I also serve. That's usual. I think it happens to more people when you get an ERC grant. Actually, I got the invitation to be in the panel before I got the decision of the ERC grant, and I wrote them back, could you first tell me if I got the grant? And yeah, then I had to accept, right? So anyway, and I'm in the advance, so I don't know how much relevant it is for the other categories. But one thing I noticed after serving 1 year, it's getting more and more about the project and less about your CV, which I think is very good, actually. That gives chance to people who, are still building their legacy and maybe are fresh with idea rather than overripe Nobel Prize winners, if I may say so. So that's, I think, very good. And the other thing I want to say, what I mentioned already, that there is a chance for things that may not necessarily fill the first pages of newspaper, but can be very useful for the community, like some methodological development. But I think what is very important, and I saw it as a panel member, if you go this way, you need to be able to formulate it in a simple and understandable way. And I'll give you my example, what I used in my grant as a shortcut, because we are promising to develop a computational method for large biomolecular simulations that will not add up to the computational cost, some kind of a shortcut, like a cutting corners, right? And essentially the example in this 5-minute interview that I had was about heartbeat. And I said, we can calculate anything today, but we are so bad that with the existing methods, if I would simulate heartbeat, it would work, but I would get 1 beat per 1 million years. That's about the accuracy we have. And we already found a shortcut that could cut it from 1 per 1 million years to 1 per 6 hours. And I'm trained as a physicist, so I'm already almost in the right order of magnitude, right? But still the biologists will say this is hopeless, right? So all I'm doing is applying for the money to cut it from the 1 in 6 hours to 1 per second. And I think that got the message through. And also what I said, it's a free lunch. It will not add to the computational cost. And then immediately someone in the panel asked, so if it's a free lunch approach, why are you asking for money? Thought about it, and I told them, yeah, it will be free lunch when I develop it. It will cost me 2.5 million euros to develop it. So you have to be ready for, But what I'm trying to say is, yeah, I mean, I think you can go ahead with projects that don't necessarily are terribly flashy if they're useful for the community, but you need to be able to sell it in a shortcut. And for me, good training is to write columns for respect, right? I mean, you have some idea that would fill a book and you have to fit it in one column. And if you can do that, then maybe your project actually makes sense, right? So, yeah.
Thank you.
So you are right that now in ERCs, on the first place is the idea of the project, yes. And it was not always so. It was 50 and 50, yes. And CV is only on the second position for evaluation. And the reason was also because of so-called widening countries, yes, because everybody noticed that, okay, so people from Romania or, I don't know, Albania, they have not such a CV like people from UK, yes, but maybe they can have also some brilliant ideas, yes, and so that's right now.
I just want to agree with what you're saying. I think, you're talking about, the project wasn't so flashy, but you were selling it in a great way. I mean, this is also important. If you have a great fundamental changing idea, but you don't know how to sell it, you're never going to get the grant. So selling it is like, I would say the majority of the work. I mean, you have to have a reasonably good idea, but if you know how to sell it perfectly, then that's, I think you're solid.
Try to explain it to your mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Maybe just as a voice of dissent, right? I mean, we should also not worship ERC. That's like a measure of the goodness of your idea. There are many cases where fantastic ideas don't make it at the ERC panel, right? And you can prove it. So it's at the end of the day, it's a human endeavor, and people make mistakes, right? And so, let's not see this as the ultimate measure of success. It is not.
But I think like one theme you actually like say, all of you, is that you basically like always you come up with something new actually for the proposal. So it's not all, it's basically never the stuff you did before, and you actually always move to a new project. That's my understanding what you are saying. No?
Again, I mean, in my case, I don't want to. That's the one case I understand, right? I already could prove that I could bring the heartbeat from 1 in 1 million years to 1 per 6 hours before I got the grant, right? So there was preliminary results, right? And I think that was equally important, like the idea how to make it from 1 per 6 hours to 1 per second. I would say both is very important.
But okay, let me then phrase a question to you. So how long did you work on this, bringing it down? Like, is this whole your scientific career that you are working the same? 10 years. 10 years. Okay, but how long are you in science?
30, yeah. But it's a significant part of my career I've been working on it. So,
okay. Mm-hmm.
And I think I could prove, and that's about what was mentioned here already, right? I mean, you need to convince the panel that you're the right person for it, and you can actually achieve it, right, with a reasonable probability. And preliminary results, or someone didn't like the word preliminary results, so how should we call it? A proof of concept, something, right?
Right.
When I'm now in the panel and I see a very nice proposal and there is no preliminary results, it's like really red light.
Okay. But for others, actually, is that the case in your case, that you actually are changing the subject a little bit of the proposal you are actually going to write, or not?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of pivoted several times in my career to different topics, and I think ERC to some degree encourages that, right? I mean, to work on a different subject, and I don't think it can be kind of labeled as being bad or good. It really depends, what your pivot is. I mean, is it somehow enriching your repertoire of methods, and is it kind of in general, for example, in my case, building bridges between disciplines? I cannot be an expert in both, but I see the benefit of building the bridge. So I think in that sense it can be seen as a good thing, but people are completely allowed to criticize me and saying that I'm not focused. I will take it.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, Alex.
One recommendation for you, some general recommendation. If you write the project, so write it so, it was also mentioned here, that people who are not experts would understand, yes, because you have to go through this step 1, and they are not specialists in the panel. For example, for your field, there is nobody, yes. It can happen, yes. And so it is very important to pass through this first step, because then after, in second step, so some foreign reviewers, they have seen your project and they understand, and they can write some positive reports, yes. So it is very important. And I remember when I was in panels, so some of my colleagues in the panels, they put some very bad mark to this project, and they ask why, yes, these others. And I did not understand anything in this project. So, but it is not fair, yes. No, it must be written in such a way that even I will understand that it is something very important. So.
Yeah. You want to comment? No.
Some kind of free comments. So I think, what you mentioned is that ERC now is trying to level the playing field and, focus on the science, and then like that maybe give chances to the people from widening countries. I mean, this is all true, right? But at some point, I think what we are doing here, for example, with the ERC expert panel is very important, because the idea could be as good as possible, but if the grant stands out entirely, from the way it is written, the way it is structured, the way the CV is presented, the way the holes are absolutely obvious, it will have no chance at the panel. And this, I see that often. You can see it on the panel, usually not in the second round, but in the first round you see it. It's really like people don't have the background of the training in excellent institution, and it shows. Right? It shows. The idea might be great, but it's just not written very well. Right? And similar things happens. I now kind of I propose people a lot to review the ERC grants from Czechia, right? And the reviews which come back, they are good reviews. Those are experts. They are really substantial, but they are written in a completely different way than all the other reviews, right? And that is not good, right? And the same thing, you are an exception, but a lot of people in Czechia have no experience, working at a journal as editors, as academic editors, right? Maybe in some lesser journals, but they don't really have the experience of, fighting with reviewers in the top-notch journals about the stuff that matters, right? And so all these things, I think, are part of the disadvantage which we have, and the ERC cannot address this, right? Because we don't have experience with review, we don't have experience with editing, we are not invited to all the top conferences like everybody else. The panel members are not seeing us giving talks, every other month, on the big fora, and all that is a disadvantage, and we need to change that as well, right? The idea would have to be, I don't know how good the idea would have to be if it would kind of compensate for all these shortcomings if you have them.
Yes, please. Comment.
Yes, I'd just like to comment on that. All what has been said, I completely sign. And but there's one thing that I think is important with that, because it goes hand in hand. Clarity in writing is related to clarity of thinking. If you have just the idea, you are unable to express it in an understandable way, it means that you don't see the path towards this idea. So to have an idea is not enough. You must be also professional. Professional means that you are able to clarify the steps towards that, and that's the part of what we are doing here, I think. So, and that's the part that also contributes to the whole culture. That's why we are then losing as a country, and we are staying on, say, some kind of a standard level, or we are unable to reach the top, because we are not trained in developing this idea, which might be absolutely great, but we are not able to reach the end, because we simply don't have the skills. And they are the skills that we can learn from preparing ERC proposals.
Thank you. Yeah.
Add my comment to these ERC expert members and the workshop. I actually was part of all this, like from writing the proposal, then being evaluated by the group of experts here, then getting the feedback back, which is usually it's meant to be critical, and that was actually really good for me. And I must say that I thought, okay, now I have a really good flow and idea, and it's well explained. And then you get the feedback, and you see, oh no, yeah, no, and this didn't work, and yeah, right, this was also not good, and I still cut some parts away. And then even for me happened what you just said. So once I rewrote it in more clear way, I got new ideas on, this could actually be proved like that. So even the thinking itself, it really happened that it got improved. And in my case, both writing the proposal and getting the feedback was really great. Also, one of the things was that I had to write it way before the deadline, which might sound a bit not as a positive thing, but it was half a year before the deadline. But then having it written like well in advance gives you time to forget a bit, and then you read it again and you realize, oh yeah, okay, this really doesn't make that much sense. So I had way more time than usually for other grant applications to really make it like nicer and more solid. And also in the second round, there was this interview and the feedback on the presentations and the mock interviews. I had so many mock interviews, but within this workshop, several of them as well. And it was really very great like to hear the feedback. And I'm sure that without that, so the improvement was very big for like my expertise. So my experience, sorry. In my case, it was very helpful, and I think it may be the difference which made me perhaps to pass or not. I'm not sure about that. But I also met like colleagues from Germany who were telling me, so we are hiring a professional agency tomorrow, so that we are rehearsing our interviews. There was 2 months before the interview date, and these things. I was like, okay, so we are having this, which is great, and it actually serves the same way. But before, if we wouldn't have anything, we are comparing with those who go through the professional preparation, so that may also add on the difference, which is there already.
So I guess let me ask then, like based on the experience in the panel, basically you are saying that the project has to be perfect in order to get funding, or close to perfect. No?
Great to have, right?
Okay.
But no, I mean, in the panel, what is most important is there is one person who really likes it, and is willing to put the skin to the market, I don't know what's the English expression for it, to fight for it, right? And you can even get like a damning reviews from the external panels, but if you have your champion, which definitely doesn't know you, because conflict of interest is super strictly treated. But if you really excited someone on the panel, ideally 2 people or 3 people, about your idea, your job is done basically, because they will do everything to get you above the line. Sometimes they fail, but that's. But if they are convinced, if they really think that this needs to be funded, then you win.
Yeah, I would co-sign what Pavel just said, and about the project being perfect, right? And maybe about hiring a professional agency. And someone said here it was useful, and it can be useful. But there is a potential danger, right? I mean, that all the perfect proposals will look exactly the same. And the example I would give is then you can buy an apple in the supermarket, right? And they're perfect there. They look the same, but they don't smell. And then you go on the farmer's market, and they're kind of a little wrinkled, but they're still good apples, and they smell, right? The proposal has to smell. It has to smell of you, not of a professional agency, that polished it. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah.
I also add another experience on that, because I always had in mind that I should sell what I feel, and that also I need to make someone excited about it. That was one of the very helpful comments which made me to imagine better how it works. So I always was thinking, so how would I explain this to someone that this is really cool? And so that helped me to improve the proposal. But what I wanted to say is that when I was preparing for an interview, we also had this set of questions which may be asked, like the more general ones. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? It really happens there. And I mean, I had some, discussed with colleagues, some pre-rehearsed answers to that. And one of them, I got exactly the one. Where do you see your research under yourself in 5 years? And I started to say something like, yeah, I see my lab could be kind of a hub for other people's kind. And in the middle of the sentence, I knew that this is not how I feel it. It was just a pre-rehearsed sentence. And I was like, oh my God, that was a bad idea. So I finished the sentence. It worked, but I felt really bad about it. So I think it has to be balanced, that you really respond kind of honestly, but you should think about these questions before. I have to say that I got a list of 10 or 15 questions, the general ones which usually are there, and one of them will be there during the interview. I think everyone said that. So it also makes sense to get prepared to those. But yeah, I would not overdo it with getting a professional rehearsal, some majority, what the agency thinks is a good thing, so no.
Services to write Horizon 2020 grants, that's very useful, because there's no science in it. So.
Thank you. I think our time is almost up, so I would like to ask you if you have some final comments you would like to share, or thoughts on how to improve our success in ERC. Anyone? Yeah.
One thing which I didn't say during my speech, right, was, I was talking about how the senior people at Max Planck, are taking mentoring seriously, that it's part of their job, and that they have to do it. In the system which we have in Max Planck, we end up mentoring people who leave because there is a turnover. So typically people get an ERC and then they leave. They use the ERC to get the next job, right? And I also mentioned how we are training postdocs to go on the job market, and so they leave the institute, right? So why do we do it? Why do we do it? We do it because then we are known as the institution which produces, fantastic postdocs and fantastic PIs who are internationally competitive and get a job, right? And that means we are attracting the best people on the job market, right? And in a sense, that's also what we should do in our institutions, but also on the level of the country. I mean, we spend a lot of energy, working with our ERC applicants, and we don't really get that much benefit out of it personally, right? But we do, because then the Czechia will have a scientific community which is ripe, with ERC talent, with people with international experience who are behaving indistinguishably from the top scientific stars of the West or the US, and that's why we do it, right? So that's, I think, important, that nothing is selfless. You do everything for your benefit, but sometimes the benefit is a bit indirect and long-term. Yeah.
Maybe that's a good stopping point, actually. So thank everyone for for taking part in this, and thanks everyone who came actually for the day, and everyone who took part in this and organized it. So let's give a hand of applause to actually people from Technological Agency and Zdeněk for this. So do you want to actually, Zdeněk, say something in the final thing? Yeah.
So we are happy to see you here. And we'll be even more happy when we will hear some good news from you that you are going to apply this year or another year, but that we just put some seed into your, say, heart. And all what has been said here, the critical comments, is just that we have to see the reality. You know, we cannot escape from the reality, just close the eyes. But at the same time, we are here to try to change the reality. I mean, that's our job. Okay, so not only our job, but for all of us. So let's do it. And we'll be very happy when you know, you will succeed with your applications, and when we'll perhaps be able to help a little bit with that. The last what I'd like to say is really the work that the Technology Center from the very beginning is doing for this is totally invaluable. I mean, that would not, this whole system would not be born without the Technology Center, without the people who were the Petra Perutkova, Fedorová, and Zuzka Čapek, and now Lida, who is doing that so graciously. You have seen that. Everything that works in organization all over the year. I've said, you don't see what is behind that, because it's behind the scene is tremendous amount of organizational work. And that's all done essentially and had and led and organized now by Lida. So I'd like to thank her.
Thank you very much for being here with us. I will have a little request for you. So we would very much like to improve our services that we provide to you. And if you have any ideas how to make this event even more interesting for you, for next year, you can fill in the evaluation report, and we will be very happy to read it and implement in practice. So thank you for being here. I hope everything has been useful and it clarified the main questions you had about the ERC, and good luck with your own proposals. We'll be happy to meet you at our workshops.